Servus everyone and welcome to 1000 PS TV. We have thoroughly tested the KTM 390 Adventure R here in the beautiful Salzburger land, both on the road and off-road. And if that interests you, then stay tuned. See you in a moment. We tested the 390 Adventure R thoroughly, both on the road and off-road. I was not alone because some colleagues from 1000 PS were also riding with us. And when it comes to travel qualities, I will bring in Wolf. He can tell us a bit more about travel comfort, wind protection and similar things. So, as already announced, Wolf is now standing next to me. He has spent a lot of time on the bike and can say a lot about touring capability, wind protection and so on. Wolf, what was your impression of the overall package when it comes to travel, wind protection and ergonomics?
Yes, I have already been on a longer trip with it in Bosnia, and I have to say, you feel comfortable. The ergonomics, once you sit on it, are very, very relaxed. Wind protection is good. We have this typical hole in the windscreen, which simply reduces the turbulence around the helmet area quite a lot. Several manufacturers have already adopted this system, so the wind protection is decent. Of course, you must not forget that it is a single cylinder. You either have to want a single cylinder or you have to live with its characteristics. You do have to rev the engine if you want it to be fun, if you want it to really be ready to race, as KTM likes to say, but you can also ride it more calmly. I'm talking about gravel roads like the ones we rode this morning. In the afternoon, we are also going into our own off-road area, which we have available here at the Newchurch Summit. That is probably where you can really enjoy it. But what I like about this motorcycle is the ergonomics, the proper wind protection and all of that combined with this lightness, this bicycle-like feeling when I am riding on gravel roads. I always feel comfortable on it. There is simply no weight to move around.
Yes, because you must not forget, when we do a test like this today, we are only riding with it for 2 or 3 days. So from a long-term perspective, I am very grateful for your assessment. How many kilometers have you ridden with it roughly?
Yes, I would say I have now ridden around 10,000 kilometers with it.
Crazy. That is, of course, a bit more than the few hundred kilometers we are doing here. So in that sense, definitely good. I see it the same way as you. An A2 motorcycle like this can be really fun. And when you do it properly, for me, it was actually the first time riding up the Großglockner. And I have to say that was also really fun on an A2 motorcycle. When you rev it out, you also have the huge advantage that the speed is naturally limited. So when you accelerate out of a corner, you are not immediately going way too fast. I really love this A2 class with motorcycles around 48 horsepower. Here it is exactly 45 horsepower. That means you can really rev out a gear now and then. And you can also have a bit of fun. For me, it is almost like a flashback to the moped days where you could simply have fun with it too. So even as an experienced rider, it is really very, very funny and very cool. But of course, it is just as accessible as the others have already said. And as I also believe myself, even if someone is not that experienced, they can still ride it very well. When we talk about ergonomics, imagine sitting on it. We were riding on main roads and on the Großglockner Road, and I have to say, at 1.75 m, the handlebar position and knee angle worked well for me. Also when standing, which is often an issue. When you stand on the balls of your feet, sometimes the exhaust or something else is constantly in the way, or the heel plates get annoying. But here I have to say, it is really well solved. There is space towards the rear, you can move around and you can ride the motorcycle well. The brakes bite properly for this motorcycle. They are also easy to modulate. The tire combination we had here, 21 inches at the front and 18 inches at the rear with a 140 rear tire, means you can also get proper off-road tires for it. On the road, the Mitas tire fitted here actually performed well. It gave a good feeling for riding at a decent pace. And I have to say, when it comes to road use, suspension and brakes, there is actually nothing where I would say it did not fit this class. Of course, the brake could have a slightly firmer pressure point and bite a little more aggressively. But to keep the motorcycle accessible, I would say everything fits from that perspective. In terms of electronics, we have ABS, we have traction control, and we can operate it all. We have a TFT display, and as you would expect, it is relatively intuitive via the buttons. You get used to it very quickly, even though I do not spend that much time with KTM motorcycles. So I found my way around very quickly. For a few stunt shots, I was able to switch the ABS so that the rear ABS was turned off. There is a ride mode, street mode, off-road mode and rain mode. So in that sense, everything you need is included. The quickshifter works well, both upshifts and downshifts. So from that point of view, everything was fine. We also rode quite a lot off-road, and now we will take a look at how the motorcycle performs there with its 21-inch front wheel, 18-inch rear wheel, and for the A2 class, one of the bikes with a lot of suspension travel with 230 millimeters. So stay tuned. Hot days here at the Newchurch Summit. That is why we moved a little bit into the shade. You definitely must not miss it next year. From the 13th to the 20th of June, we will be back here in 2027 at the Newchurch Summit in Neukirchen am Großvenediger. Great events, lots of music bands, great parties in the evening, test rides from all the well-known manufacturers, guided tours, stunt shows. So it really is a full program with something for everyone. You definitely have to be there. Here we were now riding in the off-road area, and this is where the small KTM, the 390 Adventure R as a single cylinder really makes sense. I would almost say that when things get extreme off-road, it is the most off-road capable A2 adventure bike because it is very light. With 230 millimeters of suspension travel at the front and rear, it of course also has proper ground clearance, 21 inches at the front, 18 inches at the rear. So that is also a cool setup because you can fit really aggressive knobby tires. That becomes important if you go into sand where you need traction, or of course if it gets properly muddy, forest floor or clay ground for example. If it were muddy there, then this wheel size combination would definitely offer very big advantages. How does the motorcycle ride? In terms of ergonomics, I have to say I liked it quite a lot when standing. A small special point is that I am 1.75 meters and I cannot get both feet fully on the ground. I only reach the ground with my tiptoes. More or less it works. If you are smaller, it only works if you lean the bike over. So I would say you should be around 1.75 meters if you want to reach the ground reasonably well. When standing, it still fits me. It is a very active position. KTM is ready to race. That means you do not stand completely upright, like perhaps on a Kawasaki. Instead, they deliberately chose a slightly more active position, and I actually like it quite a lot. The controls, brake and clutch all worked well. As for the suspension travel, the front could be a little harder. When we rode a bit more actively, the fork bottomed out once or twice at the front. But we have to add that we had not changed anything yet, or let us say we had not adjusted the suspension. We could have set it harder, but we had not done that yet. For me, a small criticism is that compared to the rear, the front is a little too soft. And that is why once or twice the motorcycle felt a little bit vague, especially during a few stunts where the front dipped in a bit, let us put it that way. In itself, what is definitely very cool is that you can set the ride modes, electronics, ABS and traction control the way you want them, and that is also saved. So if you are the kind of rider who says you always want to ride without traction control, then you can set that and it remains stored in the riding mode. You can also adjust the road mode in the same way. That is really cool when it comes to the individuality of the motorcycle. And I have to say, here off-road, I really like the bike. On the road, if you really only ride light off-road, then as a cross-reference, watch the video of the 390X. With its 19-inch front wheel, if you ride more on the road, that would probably be my favorite. But as I already said, for extreme off-road riding, I think this motorcycle is probably the most capable in this combination. If it really is Bosnia, huge rocks or properly falling through sand, and it has to be an A2 machine, then I think this is a very good concept. And the footage is just as hot as the weather. For that, we have Insta360 as a partner. The X5 camera has the big advantage that you never have to think about the angle. And yes, here you might see a few scratches from a distance. That is also something special, I would say. Here in a lean angle, it was leaned over a bit too far and then the camera touched the ground. The special thing is that you can replace the lens on the X5, so afterwards you simply unscrew it, put on another lens and you are directly ready to go again. We also mounted the Ace Pro 2 under the helmet so that we could capture the onboard POV shots very nicely. That is great, and it captures a bit of the action while riding. So all in all, a very cool thing. Yes, I have brought in some backup here with Gregor. Thank you. I have already said what my impressions were in slightly more extreme terrain. How did you get on with it? What were your impressions?
I think in the A2 adventure bike segment, there is hardly any bike, if any, that is trimmed as strongly towards harder terrain as the KTM 390 Adventure R. And I think we can definitely say that. I had already spent a bit of time with it before on other tours. And there are still a few points that, at least for my preferences, do not fit 100%. They are small things. For example, it is relatively strongly trimmed towards agility. We talked about this earlier. Because if you are not the big off-road hero, then at least for me, it always creates a little bit of uncertainty. Is the problem me now, or is it actually something about the motorcycle? But you confirmed it as well. First of all, of course, it has a large front wheel. Second, it has a relatively steep steering head angle because it is trimmed for agility. And on top of that, it has long suspension travel, which also brings in some movement if you do not have, let us say, the perfect smooth progression when braking or something like that. So it can feel a little unsettled, especially when braking over the front wheel. Or if you are a bit clumsy, the whole front end, the front wheel kind of wants to tuck in by itself or wants to turn in the direction in which you are currently pushing the bike at lean. For me, that feels a little nervous. And sometimes I do not like that completely, but with better riding technique, you could definitely reduce this problem. And above all, it is still only a nuance. And regarding the engine, I have already mentioned this in other videos. It is nice because I rode it back then, almost shortly after it was released. And at that time, it had the problem that at low RPM, even partly with the clutch pulled, the engine would stall. There was a recall, and that has now been improved. It did not happen to me even once this time. So very good, KTM. The basic character of the engine has, of course, remained the same. And as a Tenere rider, I simply love having torque from low down in loose terrain. For example, if I mess up my line, I hesitate and roll off the throttle when I should not, and then become too slow in too high a gear. Then I like having an engine with enough power and sovereignty from low down to pull me up like a tractor. And that is simply not the case with the 390R, and it never will be. It needs revs, revs, revs. Then it works brilliantly. But that is simply something that does not match my preferences. So it is not that the bike is bad or good because of that. It simply does not really suit me. But the suspension and ergonomics are made for off-road riding. And looking at this overall package, now that the engine problems have also been solved, I would not have to convince myself at all to go on any mixed tour or off-road tour with this thing. Personally, I still would not buy it, for example, because of the engine character. But as I said, that is subjective. This is a subjective hobby, a subjective passion. KTM is also strongly represented here with a whole circus and many other manufacturers too. So there are an incredible number of opportunities for test rides.
For me, as a racer, the special thing is, of course, that I get a motorcycle and I have to get the best possible result out of the motorcycle and the package I have. So complaining does not help, only the result counts. And that is why I can adapt to a motorcycle like this relatively well and relatively quickly. So clearly, as you said, the engine simply wants to be kept in the revs. I come from single cylinders, supermoto, and also the racetrack. You always ride with a lot of revs there. So that is not, or let us say, it is not a big adjustment for me. That is why it does not stand out negatively to me. But of course, I like riding big machines too. And if I could choose, then of course I would also like a motorcycle with a bit more torque. But for an A2 segment bike, I have to say it is actually quite an interesting and coherent package. I am curious what you say about this topic and how you see the whole thing. So feel free to write it in the comments. And yes, to conclude, if you look at the combination of road and off-road, the more extreme the terrain gets, the more I think this is a top motorcycle. The more road someone rides, the more I would lean towards a motorcycle with a 19-inch front wheel. KTM also offers that if you say you want something orange, or of course other manufacturers do as well. Personally, I am more a fan of that if I say I want a bit of supermoto character, which is more what a 19-inch front wheel offers. But you saw it in the footage. You can also ride properly on the road with this motorcycle, with luggage, with everything around it. So it is a nice adventure bike. I am curious what you will ride. See you soon. Servus, everyone.